My name is Seth Dillon. I'm the Director of Product Development at PubMatch. We are co-sponsors of this area, so we appreciate your attendance. PubMatch is a complete system for rights buying and selling, and I'll get into that as part of the talk that we're going to have, which is focused on how rights are bought and sold in the 21st century. That is a bit of a misnomer because the way rights are bought and sold hasn't changed much in some time, so I'm going to cover a lot of ground. So if it's familiar to you, just like, sing Bohemian Rhapsody in your head or something, and then I'll grab your attention when we're getting to the new information. So what are foreign rights? Foreign rights are the permission granted from a rights owner to a rights buyer, usually a publisher, giving them the permission to publish a specific work in a specific region, in a specific language, for a specific amount of time. So it's essentially the way that an agent would sell a book to a publisher. It's the agent selling a book to a publisher in a foreign country. It's one of many different sub-rights. Sub-rights are how you break up the rights to a book. Foreign rights are also what make publishing the exchange of culture and the exchange of ideas. It's how a book from one country written in another language could become a bestseller in a totally different country and market. So it's very lucrative. From a business perspective, I tell college students that want to inquire about the publishing industry that the best international travel comes in the rights department. From a business perspective, J.K. Rowling, for example, when she wrote Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, she didn't know she was also writing Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or the 63 other foreign language versions of that book that exist. And J.K. Rowling is a billionaire. Huge asterisk, because she's not a billionaire because of those foreign rights, but foreign rights are lucrative. So, how are foreign rights bought and sold? A lot of the process hasn't changed too much in some time. A lot of publishers use sub-agents. Sub-agents represent a publisher's titles for a specific language or for a specific area. So there might be a sub-agent that represents all of Scandinavia. There might be a sub-agent that represents, Asian languages. So sub-agents work on behalf of publishers to pitch their books, negotiate with potential buyers. They present books to people on the ground. The sub-agents are located in the territory that they represent. So they build long-term relationships with buyers. They vet buyers of publishers. They make sure that your titles end up in good hands. And everything that they do is with permission from the publisher. Book fairs are another way that rights get sold. Publishers attend book fairs. There are dozens of international book fairs on the calendar throughout the year. There are some book fairs like the London Book Fair and the Frankfurt Book Fair where people from all over the world come to meet, and you could be a publisher from Japan selling book rights to a publisher in the UK. Likewise, there are other book fairs like the Beijing Book Fair or the Guadalajara Book Fair where the focus is to break into those specific markets. But on site at these book fairs, what happens is negotiations, sales pitches, book presentations, contracts are signed, and auctions will take place. For example, Harry Potter was auctioned at the Bologna Book Fair, and that's how we have it in North America. That's where Arthur A. Levine purchased Harry Potter. So common thread between the sub-agents and the book fairs is that most of these rights are sold from face-to-face interaction. So when you talk about selling rights in the 21st century, one thing that you need to consider is how our current technology helps facilitate these face-to-face interactions. So there's a few different avenues that exist for that sort of thing. Almost every book fair, their website acts as a database for who's attending, so you could set up your appointments. You could pitch your books before you even get to the book fair, so you know who you're talking to, and you're pretty well prepared when you're on site to start signing some contracts. You could also follow news sources like Publishers Weekly and Publishers Marketplace or Publishers Lunch, and they sort of tell you what's trending, like what's popular in specific regions. that what genres are doing really well, what kind of books are selling. So let's say if science fiction books are selling particularly well in Germany, and you notice that, then you want to, maybe you have science fiction books, maybe you want to find some German potential matches. PubMatch, our website, we have 10,000 users from 151 different countries that are all rights buyers and sellers. We make connections on a weekly basis, so you'll receive an email with potential matches. If you're selling rights, you'll receive an email of buyers. If you're buying rights, you'll receive an email of titles that might be of interest of you. So we match you up pretty closely based on some specific criteria. And rights management is a really important aspect of buying and selling rights. If you don't own the right, you can't sell it. So if you're not organized with your titles, then you don't know what you're allowed to sell. So there are companies like Metacomet, Firebrand, Klapotech, and Publishing Technology that offer rights platforms for you to keep track of what rights you own, what you can sell. PubMatch also has a rights database that you can populate. So you're in charge of, you find out, you keep track of what rights you have, what rights you're selling, and what rights you're trying to buy. So there's a lot of face-to-face interaction that needs to take place. But face-to-face interaction could only account for so much. There's a lot of markets that can't necessarily be reached. They don't come to book fairs. There's a lot of books that you might be representing that you can't cover all in one face-to-face discussion. So these traditional means don't necessarily cover all of the different possibilities of how you can buy and sell rights in the 21st century, which is supposed to be what we're talking about right now. But I am going to take a little bit of a detour because there is a misconception that the existence of ebooks and the existence of online retailers like Amazon that make your book available anywhere in the world, there's a misconception that with that, you don't need to sell rights. The difference between buying and selling foreign rights and having your book available in foreign markets is simply that nobody in the local market is taking on the burden of publishing and selling your book if you just have an ebook version of your book available online somewhere, or even a print version that's accessible from Amazon. When you sell the foreign rights, somebody's taking on the burden of publishing, which means they're printing, they're editing, they're translating it into their local market. They're making an accessible edition to the local market. And that edition isn't necessarily available unless you find a partner to sell your foreign rights to give them the availability to create a local edition. Otherwise, your book could be available for sale right now in China, but nobody in China would know. And if they don't read English, they might not be able to purchase your book or read your book. So how do we facilitate foreign rights sales using modern technology? Here at Book Expo America, PubMatch is introducing a platform called Rights at PubMatch in cooperation with the Copyright Clearance Center to automate the process of buying and selling foreign rights. The reason why automation is important for buying and selling rights is not only because automation in foreign rights is the last step for publishing. We've already automated printing. There's apps that exist to automate writing. There's certainly spell check. There's a million different versions of automation that are in existence in the publishing industry, but foreign rights sales automation does not exist. One of the important reasons why we need automation in foreign rights sales is because we can't accomplish everything face-to-face. If you're going to the Frankfurt Book Fair, you're probably bringing your front list. You're bringing your new titles, you're bringing the books that you want to get people excited about, but you might have hundreds of backlist titles that people don't know about that they would be excited about. With Rights at PubMatch and with automating rights sales, you have the opportunity to make the rights for these books available for sale without having to necessarily put in the work of the face-to-face negotiation or the time that it takes to talk about every single title face-to-face. So on Rights at PubMatch, to create an automated title for sale, or to create a title for sale on an automated basis, you as the seller detail exactly what's for sale. That includes the language, the territory, the formats. You detail the duration of the contract, the print run of the contract, and the price of the advance, and the royalties that you want to receive. When you detail all that, the book goes for sale almost immediately on the system. rights buyers who visit the system can click to purchase the sale. Click to purchase the right via Copyright Clearance Center's Rights Link technology. Rights Link is a product that has automated the licensing of parts of books. So this is the first time that they're licensing the entire book. It's been retrofitted to make it so rather than licensing a chapter or a few paragraphs, you could purchase the full right to a book based on the criteria that the seller has detailed and made available. Automation is also really helpful for small markets. There are markets that are not represented by sub-agents. There are markets that are not represented at book fairs, maybe with the exception of the Frankfurt Book Fair, that they don't have the opportunity to know about books that are coming out in your local market, but they're still starved for content. For example, the Middle East has a hard time getting content. And though they're represented at a lot of book fairs and they have their own book fairs like the Sharjah Book Fair, there's not a lot of attendance from foreign publishers to the Sharjah Book Fair, and they don't necessarily have the option to attend the other book fairs like the London Book Fair where they could purchase the rights. So automation helps the smaller markets obtain the titles that they want to buy the rights to. For buyers who are buying rights, PubMatch is nearing 100,000 titles with available rights, and coming at the end of this book fair, they'll be able to detail what rights they want to sell, and they could be purchased on an automated basis. So by the end of June this year, there will be 100,000 titles with available rights for sale on PubMatch. So as we move towards an automated process, an automated industry, foreign rights are the last bit of publishing that need to be automated, not only to, flourish in a business perspective, but if we consider foreign rights a cultural exchange, this is the last bit of publishing and technology that put the two together to facilitate the cultural exchange. That's not to say that we're totally going to replace face-to-face conversation for buying and selling rights, because frontlist titles, John Grisham, J.K. Rowling, they're never going to sell their rights on an automated basis. But when automated selling of foreign rights becomes available, that means more titles available in foreign markets around the world. So speaking of face-to-face interaction, we are hosting a happy hour here for the next hour, starting at 3:30. And because you were so kind to listen, you could talk to myself or my colleague, and you'll receive a drink ticket, good for one drink, and I know that's probably why you're here. But before we move on to that, does anybody have any questions about PubMatch, foreign rights in general? Young lady? On an automated process? Is that what you mean?
Do I
She
need to
asked how
repeat
you
that
vet
again?
the buyers on an automated process. So there are sort of two ways. On the Rights at PubMatch system, buyers need to register with Copyright Clearance Center to be able to purchase. And part of the registration process, there are a few fields that prove that you're a legitimate company, such as tax. You need to enter your tax ID. If you don't have a tax ID, you can't purchase the rights. From the automated process that we've created, we provide you with a standard contract. Our contract has a built-in clause that you, as the seller, you could void the contract within 30 days. So once you find out who the buyer is, similar to how the London Book Fair is an arena for you to meet to buy and sell rights, PubMatch is also an arena for you to meet and buy and sell rights. So there is a bit of a burden on you to make sure that the person who's bought your rights is somebody that you want to work with. And if they're not, you do have the option to void the contract. On PubMatch, you can replace our standard contract with a contract of your own, and when you do that, you are prompted to include a clause like this just to protect yourself. So she asked how you negotiate the terms. From an automated perspective, the price for automation, the reason why you want to have an automated process is so that you don't necessarily have to negotiate the terms. You, as the seller, are deciding on the terms, and the buyer is deciding to agree with them when they purchase. So if you wanted to have a negotiation process, there's certainly, you could set up appointments at book fairs and negotiate face-to-face. Right. Well, so there's a part of the system where you could build in what's called a managed redirect. So rather than selling on an automated basis, you would find out who's inquiring to buy, and you could negotiate at that point. You could also negotiate before you even make any of the titles available for sale. But we're adding uh, ancillary information, like buying and selling guides. Once the product goes live at the end of this week, then we start adding some educational stuff like that, but there's sort of no replacement for just talking to people in the local market. And once you create a rule, you can make all of your titles available for sale and announce that they're available for sale to several buyers. Because the transactions aren't live yet, we haven't been able to accrue that information. But Publishers Weekly and Publishers Marketplace, they gather statistics on that sort of thing, which is sort of like the average deal size, that sort of thing. So there are outlets there that exist for that. And once our process is up and running for some time, and we'll be accruing that kind of data, we'll have that data available in real time as well. So PubMatch has existed for about 5 years, but it was only about 3 years ago that we took it to market, and only now are we introducing the automated process.
How do I know the price I set for each region is the right one? Not too high, not too low, just the right one. Do you have any tools or data service to help?
The price, did you say?
Yep.
How do you know if
the price
is the right
yep.
one? Different publishers use different sort of rules of thumb for how they come up with the price for their advance. It's sort of an in-house system, but obviously smaller markets don't command such a large advance. If you're selling the English language version of your book, that's going to command a much higher advance than maybe the Bulgarian language version. It also depends on how established you are as a publisher or as a writer. On PubMatch, publishers, agents, and authors can all transact. So if you're an independently published author, you could still transact on the system. There's obviously a learning curve like that, and we're creating a series of webinars, some in partnership with Copyright Clearance Center, to sort of go over some of the rules of thumb. But publishing, much like literature, is very subjective. So it really comes with experience, and the Rights at PubMatch platform is easily edited. So if you have something available for sale for some time and it's not selling, you could edit the price, sort of like a house. If it's on the market for some time and it's not selling, you could drop the price. And if you end up selling a lot, you could also raise the price for the next round. I think there's a microphone coming.
So you talked about how PubMatch has a standard boilerplate for automated rights sales for whole books, and I was wondering what your standard licensing term is, 5 to 7 years. And
you actually decide that yourself.
Okay.
So when you enter titles available for sale, you choose the durations that you make available. Because the Copyright Clearance Center's rights link system is so robust, you could give them a number of options and adjust the price accordingly. So when you first create your account with Rights at PubMatch, you'll create what are called multipliers to say, if I make a book available for sale for 1 year, I would receive 1 time my base price. But if I want to make it available for sale for 3 years, I can make it 3 times my base price. So you actually control that. So you could say that all of my books are available for sale for a term of only 3 years, or you could give the buyer the option to choose 1, 2, 3, up to 7 years.
And who are your mainstay clients for rights?
Mainstay
sales?
clients for
like
rights?
people who are selling rights. Like, are they
Sure.
big
Well,
trade publishers?
so we have
or
of the 10,000 users on PubMatch, about 4,000 are authors and about 5,000 are publishers, and the balance are made up. There's about 300 agents, and the balance are actually service providers, so they're not transacting rights. The authors that use PubMatch because they don't necessarily have representation, and we provide them sort of everything that they need, a turnkey system for buying and selling rights. In terms of publishers, the 4,000 or so publishers that are on are from all around the world. Some of the larger companies that are joining to use specifically to sell rights are John Wiley. IPG is coming on with their 200 plus publishers. We have Fox Chapel. We have Sam Hain, a lot of mid-sized publishers, and because our model is really that the automated basis or the automated type of sale is for more of a backlist. We're approaching the larger publishers who have interest in selling their backlist because they're not actively selling their backlist. There's a whole sort of movement for monetizing backlists right now because there's ebook versions available. So people are looking at their backlists and they're digitizing. And we're saying at the same time, while you're digitizing your backlist to make them for sale in your local market, you could also make them for sale in foreign markets by selling the rights. And does anybody want to have a drink ticket? Okay, so thank you very much for your time and for listening. PubMatch is at booth 1250, so I'm Seth. Please come see me if you have any questions or if you want to see the system in action.